We know that fentanyl is an epidemic in Colorado, and now it is impacting our laws. Our 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor joins us now.
Good morning, Whitney. Thanks for coming in. So let's start with the Colorado Attorney General's report that social media makes it easier for young people to access fentanyl. What is your biggest takeaways from that report?
Yeah, that report just came out on Wednesday, and it was 182 pages, and it went through this fentanyl issue. And one of the biggest takeaways was how easy it is for the kids to get fentanyl on social media, and in particular Snapchat, because they have both the snap map and then you can delete things, some things after 24 hours and some even quicker than that. So it makes it really difficult for law enforcement. So that was the issue, how they said it's as easy as ordering an Uber on social media. Also the numbers, apparently at least 60 or about 60% of prescription pills that you get unlawfully contain fentanyl. And of course, that's because it's so cheap to manufacture, and so they're mixing it in. So those were the primary takeaways.
You specifically mentioned Snapchat. I think that's important because they're also facing a lawsuit right now about how easy it is for kids to be able to get drugs on their app.
Yeah.
When we talk about this lawsuit, is there really legal standing for this? Is Snapchat responsible for that?
It's an interesting question because right now the Supreme Court just heard the issue on YouTube in the Communication Decency Act, Section 230, and whether YouTube can be liable. Because back in 1996, Congress passed a law that said internet providers can't be liable for what happens when people come on, Craigslist and things like that. Well, they're challenging it because YouTube was giving certain algorithms and was suggesting things. And so the Supreme Court is saying, can YouTube and some of these others be liable? So that's going to be the issue here in Snapchat, because under the Communication Decency Act, it's kind of a no-brainer. They will not be liable. But the Supreme Court is looking at that issue right now, and if it says, no, if you in some way edit the content or direct the content that's going to the kids, then you may be liable. So they could be liable because with the algorithms, the argument is they're directing the kids to certain content.
And just briefly, I think it's important to point out that the Communications Decency Act, that was really brought about at the beginning of the internet in the 90s. We didn't know what the internet was going to become all these years later.
That's exactly right. And the argument on one side is, hey, we can't be liable for what people do when they come to the marketplace, if you will. They have to be responsible for themselves. But where it changes now is if the algorithms are actually suggesting content. This is what was happening with terrorism. And so what you're seeing on Snapchat in particular, because the stuff goes away, is this increase in 5 areas: terrorism, white supremacy, body imaging, suicide, and a number of other things. And so they're saying this is coming up more and prompting this type of activity in these young folks. So that's the nature of the lawsuit.
This is why I say social media is just terrible. It's just so tough. So between Colorado's new fentanyl law that we've been talking a lot about and this possible precedent-setting case here as well, what do you think that means for the future of cases?
Well, I think you're going to see more and more cases where the internet provider is directing content and then somebody takes action based on that, and they say, well, now you're no longer providing it, you're actually producing content, if you will. So I could see that. And with the fentanyl issue, they increased the law last year, but what happened is folks are mixing these pills. So if they're mixing it with cocaine or Percocet or whatever, the issue is they couldn't prove what drug actually killed them. So the law that they passed in 2022, they're modifying it to say even if it's a mixture, you're still going to be liable if you kill somebody as a drug dealer.
Well, I definitely think that social media and the internet can have its perks and it can be positive when used appropriately, but we got to make sure it's safe for people to be using at all times. So we'll keep a very close eye on this for sure.
Whitney, thank you.
All right.